Who do you think would be a better president, RFK or Joe Biden? In this episode of the JRE with Dave Smith, it's episode 1977. We're at 25 minutes and 16 seconds, and that's what they're talking about. They're just talking about who Joe Biden is and what he's done and how he is right now in the public eye versus RFK and what he looks like in the public eye and what he's all about. And I want to know who you think would be a better president. I, myself, I'll get to that at the end, but it's definitely not Joe Biden. I'll tell you that. Let's get into it.
But it was so funny because because he's just so old, and you know when old people try to say the politically correct thing, and no matter how they say it, it still comes out like old and wrong. You know, it's you know, they're just like, colored people could read just as good as me and you, and you're like, oh, dude, that's the most racist thing to say. So he goes. He's telling the story of when he was a kid and his dad, and he saw two gay people kiss, and then he goes, and then one of them walked into the bank. Like, they had a job just like you or me. You know, like he was like, you're like, yeah, dude, they're people. Like, what do you, this was a revelation to you? Like, it still just sounds so fucked up, but he's trying to be cool.
And what was the thing that he said something about, just like white kids can? He was talking about poor people?
He said, poor kids are just as bright as white kids. And you're like, oh my God. Jesus, the Freudian slips. Like, it's like but it's just also like, you know, in the same way that if any of us had, like, you know, our 85-year-old grandpa at the table, every now and then if they say some things, you're going to roll your eyes. You're almost like, yeah, you can't expect him to be with the times on this. You're like, just stop making Biden talk about this stuff. He's not with but the fact that he has to not only do that, but has to be with the latest woke insanity. Yeah. Like that this guy, like that any man in their 80s has got to be like, oh yeah, Dylan Mulvaney, totally. That's a beautiful woman right there. That's what I'm looking at. Beautiful woman. And he's got to like actually do that is just hilarious.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's really interesting, the mental gymnastics that people will put themselves through.
It's really something.
Just the idea that they're not stopping him from running again. I mean, it's just, you can't.
I'm shocked. I thought they were going to replace him as the nominee at the last minute in 2020. I was shocked he did that, and I was sure he'd be a one-term president, and I'm still now not even convinced he's going to be the nominee in 2024. But the more time goes on, like, I guess they're actually doing this.
Well, the fascinating thing is they will not allow, for the primaries, they're not going to allow debates.
Oh, they don't want to let RFK on a stage with Biden.
Yeah.
RFK will rip that old man up.
Anybody will rip up Joe Biden at this point. And I just wanted to interject real quick because he's 80. He's in his 80s. Do you know how crazy that is? Wow. I've joked with people saying nobody like beyond 60 should be in the government. Like, you should just have to, like, you train somebody else in your job and you get going. You retire out. But he's in his he's almost 100 years old. I don't know how that's acceptable. That's crazy. Now, a with it 80-year-old is one thing, but Joe Biden is not that. He's like that 80-year-old that you talk to him and you say a few things and they look at you and they say, "What's your name again?" And you're like, "Wow, I'm your son." You know, like that kind of thing. Like he's losing it a little bit. It's really like a lot of people make the joke it's weekend at Bernie's, and it really is with Biden. It really is. But let's go into this part. This is where they actually discuss RFK and who he is compared to Joe Biden, which I think is something that we need to talk about. And that needs to be considered. RFK is so much better.
Then imagine if his voice was good.
It's really a shame.
It is a shame.
It's really... The job is really a speaking tour.
Yeah.
And it's a real issue that he has issues speaking, but
he did have surgery recently and it's better than it was before.
Is it better?
Yeah.
But he's an interesting guy in a lot of ways. And I know people will say you know, cuz he was a vaccine skeptic way before the COVID vaccine. He's been a skeptic of vaccines in general. And a lot of people say that's like, oh, you know, this is a conspiracy theory or it's too far. But, you know, that argument after COVID is really much weaker than it used to be. Because people are actually like, yeah, I'm listening now. Yes. Now I'm actually kind of listening to that guy.
It seems like there's a playbook, and you guys have been following this playbook forever.
Yes. And I got his speech, his announcement speech last week what he spoke for over an hour, and I mean, it was really fantastic. I don't agree with everything the guy says, but the major theme of his speech was that there is this unholy alliance of big business and big government, and they're working together to screw over the American people. And like, damned if anyone can argue that that's not true.
No one
that's
can
just
argue that.
so obviously the case, you know. And he went through this whole thing. He was really great on the stuff on the war in Ukraine and being skeptical about like what the hell are we doing here. Really, really great on the COVID stuff. And he's a Kennedy, and he's not just like one of these like, you know, like peripheral Kennedys, like I married a third cousin type Kennedy. Like he's Bobby Kennedy's kid.
Yeah.
There's something powerful about that, even still, I think.
And it's amazing that we've come so far. We're so far gone that they're not grasping that.
Yeah.
They're not latching onto that. Like, you want a Democratic president? Like, he could be the guy. But the thing is, they don't want that. They want someone who adheres to the narrative 100% completely, doesn't get off track, is in cahoots with big business and big tech and everything else.
Well, it's just that like they're.
You see, what Joe Rogan just said is true. But if we all know that, why can't we stop that? Like, I know the voting process and everything. That's how you stop it. But why can't... I always say this, and I know it sounds dumb to some people. Like, why can't we just all assemble and be like, we know what you're doing. We know why you're putting this very, very old, next to senile man into office. No. We're not even voting on this. Bring a different person immediately. Why can't we do that as people? Like, why aren't we allowed to do that? Not in some Jan 6th way, not in some belligerent way, in an orderly way where it's just like, we have seen what you have in store and it is unacceptable for us. We expect to be treated with integrity throughout the voting process, and you bringing this man to us and suggesting that he is good for this job is insulting, and you will not do it. You will not do this. You are not allowed to do it. Like, why can't we have that? I feel like the country was founded on that, on being able to walk up to the government, assembled politely, calmly, and just be like, we see what you're doing, and this needs to stop now. Like, why isn't that an option? Because it's obvious why they want Biden. Biden is willing to push everything. I mean, he's selling us off to China. He's just doing horrible things. And what he does in America affects Canada drastically. What he does, and honestly, what he does affects the entire world. Like, he is literally the one man who can wreck the democracy, the Constitution, the rights, what this country was founded on. He's the one man who can wreck all of that, just based on him just taking orders from assistants and handlers and his wife and this person from this alphabet organization. Like, why can't we just have him just it's not even as an option? I'm not saying not as the president. He should be able to serve as the president because he won that fair and square. And, you know, like, just get that, and like, now you're done. We say that you're done. You're not even an option anymore. That should just be a thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. Let's go. Sorry.
The narrative is part of it, but it's the narrative serves the system, you know? So the problem is that he's kind of outside the system, at least to some degree. At least he seems like he is. I don't know. But there's also something to, you know, look, I don't know exactly. In fact, I haven't heard him address it. I'm sure he has, but I don't know exactly where he is on his uncle and his father's, you know, assassinations. But I know that his dad was completely convinced that the JFK assassination was a conspiracy that they weren't telling us about. He did not buy at all into the like Lee Harvey Oswald lone, you know, wolf thing. So it's got to also be, you're a different type of outsider to the system if you believe the CIA killed your uncle. Yeah. That's a little bit different than just, and maybe your dad. Yeah, that's a little bit different than just like, you know, while I disagree with my opponent, I respect his, you know, opinion or something like that. Yeah. That's a real like, no, you understand how evil and corrupt this system is. And that's what makes him an attractive candidate to me. I like people who recognize how evil and corrupt the system is, because it really is both of those things.
And he's got direct connection to it. I mean, it was evil to his family.
Yeah.
evil to his family. And honestly, I'm like anybody who's looked into this whole thing in terms of the murders that happened, with the assassinations that happened in his family. My wife and I have looked heavily into it, and there's no way it was just a lone guy. There's just no way. And another point that they brought up that I really, really like as well is that the one thing about Trump, because I mean that's who I would like to see, but I'd be really happy if it was RFK versus Trump. I'd be really happy. And the reason I'd be really happy is because it's two outsiders, two people who are from the outside, who the people in the background don't want to see get into power. That would be perfect. The reason it's perfect is because both of them have a healthy distrust of the alphabet organizations. Kennedy, he comes from a bloodline where, when JFK was in office, he wanted to disband the CIA. Like, he thought that would be a good idea. He didn't want secret societies. He didn't want secret meetings. He didn't want any type of shadow government. He didn't want any of that stuff. He wanted all of that broken up and pushed out of government completely, which would have been a godsend to the entire world if it actually took place, but it didn't. And then Trump as well. He doesn't trust those alphabet organizations. So if both of them have a healthy distrust of what's going on the inside, you could rest assured that they have the people's interest in mind instinctually by not trusting everybody who's already on the inside. They're already looking at things the way you and I might look at things. Maybe not to the same degree, because they are politicians and they are rich and they have rich families and everything. I mean, the Kennedys are said to be worth like hundreds of billions of dollars, like way up there. Like, some people even speculate $1 trillion. Trump's family obviously worth billions and billions of dollars, probably more than we know. So they are a part of the elite, but they're the part of the elite that has that distrust. And that always makes me very hopeful. So that's what I'm hoping to see when it comes to the election. I'm hoping to see RFK versus Trump, because it seems like DeSantis is not going to make it in. A lot of stuff has popped up with him being connected to Soros. I've looked into it. I can't find anything really, but either way, it has made people distrust him just so much. Even though he's doing so much good in Florida, people are distrusting him like crazy. So his approval, I think, last I saw, it was at like 16%. Meanwhile, Trump was at like 62 to 65% or something like that. So it's definitely going to be Trump on that side. If we can just get RFK on that side, I think the country would be able to go in a much better direction. I think so. But who do you guys think, out of Biden and RFK, who do you guys want to see? You want to see Biden step in again? No shame in that if that's what you want. That's okay. It's like liking pineapple on pizza. It's okay. That's your perspective. I'll never eat a slice with you if that's the pizza that you're bringing, but I have no problem with you eating it beside me. Yeah, let me know. RFK. And another thing about RFK, he's not for just not to impact your decision here, but he's not for digital IDs, and he's definitely against the digital currencies that are coming out as well. The state sponsor, the Fed now currency becoming the main currency of the United States. He's heavily against that, and he sees the pitfalls of that. Like, he sees it all. Like, he lays it out like he's a regular conspiracy theorist. Like, he sees every single which way that could be a bad thing. So I think a guy like that deserves a shot. And I think Biden just needs to just have some time out. Like forever, obviously. Like, just forever. Like, just no more. Like, you had your chance. The country's in the worst shape I've ever seen it. And, that's enough. And obviously, I wasn't alive for the Great Depression and all that stuff. But it's bad right now. Anybody who's been alive or at voting age for the past 30 years, or maybe like 25 years, this is up there with as bad as it's gotten. So I think that's enough for him. Let some new people in. And, I know Trump's an old person, but let some new people in. You've had your shot. You messed up. But anyway, I'm out.